Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's regular meeting of the Woburn City Council of October 21, 2025. Just a reminder to everyone, tonight's meeting is being recorded for broadcast. Also, please silence your cell phones. If you are able, please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Higgins, if you would call the roll, please.
Counsel Campbell.
Present.
Counsel Demers.
Present.
Counsel DeMambro.
Present.
Counsel Ferrulo.
Present.
Counsel Mercer Bruin.
Present.
Counsel Papalato.
Present.
Counsel Toro.
Present.
Counsel Viola.
Present.
President Dillon.
Present.
Make a motion that we dispense with the reading of the previous meeting's journal and approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Make a motion to suspend the rules to take the next matter out of order, which is the Little League Challenger resolution.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Well, here tonight, we have the great privilege and honor to have with us the Woburn Little League Challenge Division. So with that, we are going to have a special night for you, and we welcome you to our chambers tonight.
Do you want to have Mark say
And-
something?
Yes.
Counsel Torres going to read the resolution.
We're going to have Mark say a few words first. Mark?
You can just suspend the rules to allow him to
Make
speak.
a motion to suspend
So
the rules
moved.
to allow Mr. Kavicki to speak.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. You have the floor, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, City Council. Thank you for inviting the Woburn Little League Challenger World Series team to the Chambers. We can't thank you enough for this special occasion. The team, as we all know, went to Williamsport August to play in an exhibition game. We're the second team in Massachusetts to have been asked to participate in this, so that alone is a huge honor to represent the state and the city, of course, and not only in the United States, but in the world. So we're very, very happy that Little League had asked us. And I want to thank John Barati, who was really the start of having Little League and, inviting us to this great occasion in Williamsport. But again, I want to thank everybody here. This team, I've said it 1,000 times to them and to my friends, my work associates. They're heroes to me, the parents, the kids. It was an amazing couple of days, from the kickoff ceremony at WIFA Park to the game on Saturday and everything in between. We even had the Japanese team come down to the practice on Saturday when we played Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, practice, and then we had the game, but they came down to the practice, and that was an amazing experience, not only for the kids and the parents, but also for people like myself who've been involved with Little League and youth sports forever. And we all, this team has been recognized, and it continues to be recognized, and it will continue to be recognized this coming Sunday at the Woburn Halloween Parade as the Grand Marshals. And again, I'd like to thank Mayor Concannon and the City Council and the Lions Club for inviting this team to be the Grand Marshal. We are very excited. Me personally, I've been in Woburn 31 years, well, you ask my wife, it's 31 years, but my Italian mother, grandparents wouldn't let me move here until I got married. So, and it's only like the third time that I've been, going to it. So I'm looking forward to it. The team is, the parents, and the family. So again, I want to thank everybody for this night. Team, parents, thank you. I love you guys. I'm what is it, October, and I'm still talking about it to so many people across the country about this team and the parents and what this did for me personally, to be honest with you. So thank you again, and looking forward to the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you sit down,
Yeah.
we all, from myself and the entire council, we want to thank you and your team for all the hard work that you do to put this together, not only for the Challenger team, but for the entire Little League. You all do a great, great service to our community, and it's deeply appreciated. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I'm glad, thank you. And this is it will be our 31st year, and it's 30 years past, and next season will be 31, and we play every Saturday, and, you know, the players that are here today, but there's also that extended family, if you will, who did not come to Williamsport, who come down. We have up to almost 45 kids, our players starting the season usually, and they come from all over, not just Woburn, right? They're all over the district. So thank you, President Dillon, and again, thank you for everybody for this
Thank you.
occasion.
Councilor Toro.
Okay. Whereas the Woburn Little League Challenger Division was organized 30 years ago and is still going strong, and whereas the Challenger Division is for players with physical and intellectual challenges, and there are usually 40 to 50 players who participate and who play every Saturday, and whereas the baseball season runs from April to June at Weaver Park as part of the Woburn Little League, and whereas the 2025 Challenger Division team was invited to Williamsport, Pennsylvania to play in an exhibition game against Wyoming Valley Challenger team during the Little League World Series weekend in August, and whereas the 2025 Challenger Division team was only the second Massachusetts team to be invited to the Little League World Series weekend, and whereas the city of Woburn was so excited and proud to see its own Challenger Division team on the world stage, showing sportsmanship, teamwork, family fun, and that they can do anything they put their minds to. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Woburn that the Woburn City Council recognizes the achievements and accomplishments of the Woburn Little League Challenger Division, including its 2025 Challenger Division team, and extends best wishes and hopes for continued future success. Signed by all 9 councilors on the Woburn City Council. Congratulations.
Now we're going to do some pictures.
Make a motion that the resolve be adopted.
Second.
A motion and a second to resolve be adopted. All in favor?
Aye.
Make a
That
motion to
passes.
return to the regular order.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
I'll make a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
Second.
Motion and a second to take a 5-minute recess for pictures. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
And an appetizer.
Make a motion to return to the regular order.
Second.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to return to regular order. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
Next item on the agenda, we have a communication from Ms. Auto the Mayor to provide, requesting time to provide a housing production plan. There is a communication dated October 6, 2025, was received from Ms. Honor the Mayor.
Make a motion that communication be received and made part of the permanent record.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Make a motion to suspend the rules to allow the mayor as designee to speak.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. How are you tonight?
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. John Cashel, Planning Director. Tonight is the initial presentation for the Housing Production Plan, which is the update from the 2017 production plan. Darlene, I'm sure you remember going through that process. The consultant that's handling this for the city is Jen Golson, and she's here this evening. So all I'm doing is introducing her, so you don't have to listen to me speak or give a presentation. That must bring a smile to your face, I know. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Jen.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Welcome. How are you tonight?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You have the floor.
Thank you. I'm just going to grab that laptop there. Well, it's lovely to be here. I'm Jen Goldson. I own a planning firm called J.M. Goldson. I started it almost 20 years ago. And one of the things that we specialize in is doing housing plans. And if I can figure out, Casey, how you work your computer. Okay. Hold on. Let me try to get this. There we go. All right. I'm not going to do that again. Jen Goldson, I've written a bunch of guidebooks on different aspects of housing in Massachusetts. We work with communities all over the state, helping them identify local strategies to help meet their housing goals, and always looking at what are all the other goals that are entwined with your housing goals, economic development goals, open space conservation goals, because whenever we do a plan on just housing, it's not really just about housing, as I'm sure you'd all agree. We're calling it the Woburn Housing Plan. It's technically a housing production plan in the state's eyes, and that gives you some benefits. It's not a mandated plan. It's something that cities and towns do voluntarily because of several reasons that I have up here on the screen. One is to help you stay above that 10% on the subsidized housing inventory, which you already are. Some communities are not, have not made as much progress, and so they do a housing plan for a different reason, and that's so that they can get into safe harbor with incremental production. But for you, it's what's your pathway to stay above that 10% on the subsidized housing inventory. It's also a tool to hear from community members, and I'm going to talk a bit about what we've been doing to date. And it helps the city really plan for the right pace and type of future growth. And one of the things we'll talk about is considerations regarding your local capacity. And then it also helps you identify future policies you may want to consider or future local initiatives you may want to consider, as well as your implementation capacity. And so those are all the main reasons that communities do housing plans like this. So the components of the housing plan are a housing needs assessment, which I think you all got in your packet at some point before this meeting. It looks at your demographic, or maybe you didn't, I don't know. It looks at your demographic characteristics as well as what your current housing stock is, what's in the development pipeline, and it looks at development constraints as well as opportunities. And then it sets 5-year goals and a menu of strategies. And I say a menu because it really is a menu. Like you go out to a restaurant and you say, oh, well, that's an interesting idea. Why don't we try to eat this tonight? It's the same thing. So nothing in the plan is mandated or required, even when you approve it. It's really a menu of choices that you have over the next 5 years. And of course, you're not limited to those choices, but they're things that have come up through the engagement process and through working through your city officials as well. And I'm just going to keep going and then take any questions at the end, if that's all right. All right, so just a few key highlights from that first piece I mentioned, the needs assessment. So what we're seeing is that Woburn is a city in transition. Demographic shifts in your population, persistent market pressures, as I'm sure you've all felt and seen, urgent affordability challenges for people who live in Woburn, and a mismatch between the homes that you have and residents' needs. And I'll cover each of those points in the following slides. So in terms of demographics, we've seen that you've had population growth and you've had continued growth, but it's slowing down a bit. So the projections are showing more incremental growth than you've seen in the past decade or so. The region and the state have both seen stronger growth in the past few decades than Woburn. And households, just in general, are smaller, on the smaller size. Almost 60% of Woburn's households are people who are living either by themselves or just with one other person. And then we're also seeing, as in the region and the state, that residents are getting older. And that's also a factor. All of these are factors in your housing needs. So the mismatched I mentioned a moment ago, households are smaller, that almost 60% of smaller households, one or two people living together, but about 55% of your homes are 3 or more bedrooms. So is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. Do people, just because you live alone, does that mean you don't want a 3-bedroom house? No, not necessarily. But what we're looking at is what freedom of choice do people have if they want to really stay in this city, in this community, but perhaps they don't want to continue living in a larger home. So it's all about freedom of choice and what options are out there. And so I also mentioned that residents are getting older. So by 2030, the latest projections are showing that older residents, so that's 65 and older, will make up almost a quarter, 24%, of your total population. And so that's up from 15 years ago in 2010 that it was only about 16%. So that's what we mean when we say residents are getting older. We're all getting older, but yeah. All right. So I also said a few moments ago that you have a very strong market in Woburn, which I'm sure you're not surprised about. And that really indicates that there's a very strong demand for housing. One of the indicators we look at when we try to determine how strong the market is your vacancy. So you might say, well, we don't want too many properties vacant, and that's correct. But the truth is you don't want too few vacant either, because that means your supply is constrained, and it's harder for people who are looking to downsize or move. It's harder for people to do that. And so there's an issue both with rental and ownership in the vacancy rates. So the rental vacancy rate is 3.4%. This is an estimate in Woburn, but the healthy vacancy rate that economists set as a benchmark for rental is 6%. That just means there's enough units vacant that you can find units that are the right size and the right location for you and your family. And then for ownership, we're seeing a similar thing where about half of 1% is estimated to be vacant in Woburn, yet a healthy vacancy for ownership where there's enough turnover is 2%. And so some of the takeaways is not only do you need a variety of sizes and formats of homes just to give people freedom of choice as they change in their needs and in their lifestyle or needs, and then a balanced mix of both rental and ownership. And in the engagement, we've heard a lot about the need for ownership and starter homes. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we've heard in the engagement, but that's one of the things. And then accessible homes as people age. If you had seen me a month ago or even just 2 weeks ago, I was hobbling around in a boot. And I'm only 54, but I just know that, that's probably not the last injury I'm going to get in my life. And so I have an even greater appreciation now for housing accessibility needs. My home is 3 stories. My bedroom's on the 3rd floor, and it was not easy climbing up and down all those stairs. So when I say accessible homes, I'm thinking of folks with disabilities at all ages, but especially those as people get older. And then you have, of course, had a lot of recent new construction, just over 16 homes built in multifamily buildings. And what we've seen when we looked back on the analysis and looking at what homes have been permitted in the past several decades, we're seeing this is really some catch-up of production that was not keeping up with demand from earlier decades. All right, and so let's look quickly at affordable housing. I'm going fast because I know you have other things on your agenda. Affordability as a critical challenge. So affordable homes, what we have found, I'm sure you're all familiar with Chapter 40B that requires that 10% of your total year-round housing stock needs to be, or there's a goal, I should say, to have it listed on something called the subsidized housing inventory. There's several ways you can qualify. They're not all affordable. But what we're seeing is that even the ones that are affordable under 40B, which is at that 80% of the area median income, those are just out of reach. If you've heard your constituents say, you know, the new building with affordable, they don't seem very affordable to me. We're seeing that in the data as well. And so local incomes in Woburn have grown slower than those in the region. And so when you price an affordable housing unit at the regional area median income, that ends up being priced too high for the Woburn median income. And so what we're seeing here in this chart, let's see if I can use the cursor. Here we go. So this bar here is that what would be considered just that max for 80% AMI. So this is showing 50 to 80% AMI. And the lighter brown, where my cursor is right now, is showing how many of those households, what percentage in that income bracket are spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs, whether it's a mortgage or rent. And we're seeing that most of them are that cost burden. It's kind of moderately cost burden. And then this darker brown on the top, there are some that are severely cost burden, and some of you may know this definition already, but that definition is if you're spending more than half of your paycheck towards housing costs, you're in that severely cost burden category, and you're really more at risk. You know, it depends on a lot of things. This doesn't look at your assets, just looking at income. But what we're seeing when we go down to these lower incomes, 30 to 50% AMI is called very low income, and then below 30 is extremely low. We're seeing Woburn residents really struggling a lot more, and it makes sense, right? As your housing costs are probably not going down by that much, even though your income is down. So you're seeing about 40% and 63%, almost 64% of households in these two lower income categories living in Woburn now, spending more than 50% of their income on rent or mortgage. And so we look at that very carefully, and you'll see why when we start to get into at your next meeting what some of the strategies might be. But what we're hearing from the community is we want units, if we're going to have affordable units, we want them to actually be affordable to Woburn residents and not priced so high that they're not actually affordable to most Woburn residents who need those housing units. Is this making sense just in terms of, this is the most detailed slide I think I have on data? Okay. All right. So the bottom line of that is the standard 40B affordability threshold is just not addressing Woburn's greatest needs for your own residents. And so the most urgent needs for your residents are that below 50% of the area median income. And through policies, if you wanted to, the city could optimize those units and incentivize those more deeply affordable units. All right, so continued momentum. In our engagement, we heard a lot of people are very much focused on the 10% threshold, which you have surpassed. You're at 10.7%. But in our analysis, we point out that threshold, that 10.7%, leaves very little margin for anything to change. And so looking at how can we be sure to stay above that 10%, and that's part of the strategies that we're looking at to help you stay above that 10%. We also we did several mapping studies and analyses, and one thing we looked at is, well, what are residential properties like now, and how do they compare to your existing zoning? What happens in a lot of older communities like Woburn is that your zoning was probably put on much later than many of the neighborhoods were built. Not in all cases, but in many cases. So what we see is that a lot of the existing homes, you can see on this chart here, most of the homes, we broke it down by neighborhood, most of the homes in all neighborhoods don't comply with either frontage or the minimum lot size per zoning, or both. And so you'll see in this map, all the brown parcels are the residential properties that do not currently comply. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing for those residents that are already there, but it does mean that if they wanted to do any changes, any additions, any dormers, things that, if they're on a non-compliant parcel, they'll need to definitely go through extra reviews. So it does dampen that freedom of choice a bit when you're looking at what are the improvements I can do to my own home without the expense of lawyers and a lengthy process. So that's one component of it. But the other component that we look at when we're thinking about, well, are there ways that people can build homes just like what's there now in these neighborhoods? And if it doesn't comply with zoning, it's much harder to get those approvals. So that also dampens the market. And so something else that we're looking at and hearing in the engagement is why not right size the zoning for what's actually built in Woburn. And then we also looked at your capacity in different areas. We looked at infrastructure for wastewater, sewer, as well as environmental capacity and constraints, and the different transportation studies and capacity there. But one I wanted to point out was just the school district capacity. And this is something we've heard a lot in our interviews and in the forum. And so you can see this goes back to 1994, where your population for the school enrollment trends fluctuated. At its peak in this time frame was in 2014, I believe this is, and it was right at around somewhere between. I don't know the exact number, but I'm gonna say it's around 4,850 or so, right between 48 and 4,900, and then you saw a big steep drop, and then it kind of bottomed out at 2021. And went up a little in 2022, back down in 2023. Then you saw a bump back up to the levels you saw in 2020, roughly a little higher in, 2025, this year. And then we looked at the school projections for the upcoming years. So the rest of this, everything before, I think actually 2024 is actual enrollment data. Everything after that are projections from the school department. And so you can see that you're projected to start to rise. And in about, 10 years from now, 9 years, you'll be roughly at about the same you were in 2019 or so. So that's what we're seeing in terms of historic school enrollment and then the projections that we received from your school department. So I wanted to point that out for you because I know that that's come up several times when we're looking at
School department numbers?
Yeah. So the ones that project out to future years are the school department projections. And then everything that's from the current date beyond is the actual enrollment that we got from the state website that tracks enrollment. All right. And then, so I wanted to just go into, I kept kind of seeding this presentation with all this community engagement that we've heard from. We've heard people say this and that. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. And I recognize some of your faces from coming to those and doing interviews with us. So thank you for that. So there was both an in-person forum in September and then a virtual forum also in September. And then we put out an online, we call it a questionnaire here, but it was really a version of the forum that people could just take asynchronously and pop online. We kept that up for 5 weeks. And we've gotten, just on the online questionnaire, almost 100 responses, which I was very impressed with. And then, of course, as you all know, because we've been doing these with you as well, we've been doing one-on-one interviews and focus groups to just try to understand where are people seeing the pinch points, where are people seeing opportunities, what are people hoping for strategies for the next 5 years. And so a few themes have come up that we've heard, and maybe some of these will resonate with you. The first one we keep hearing very strong, loud and clear is we need to maintain compliance with 40B and really a strong desire to keep Woburn above that 10%. So we're looking at what kind of zoning strategies and what kind of local initiative strategies do we need to suggest to help you stay above that 10%. The second one we're hearing is we want to expand housing options. I mentioned this before around freedom of choice, to have more choices, homes that suit all stages of life. From starter homes, we've heard also that loud and clear, to aging in place or aging in community. 3, we've heard ensuring affordability is affordable for Woburn residents, and that these regional levels are just too expensive. And so homes priced at levels Woburn residents can actually afford, and lower than what's often considered affordable at the regional level. And then 4, housing to support a vibrant downtown. Ideas for mixed-use development to strengthen your local downtown economy, and looking at opportunities for reuse and revitalization of downtown properties. And then 5, planning for future capacity responsibly. We've also heard this loud and clear, looking at school capacity, infrastructure, I mentioned before, wastewater and water, transportation capacity, and essential services of the city must be carefully planned to meet those future housing needs in a fiscally responsible way, especially by leveraging non-city funding. And so one thing I didn't mention early on, but by approving a housing plan like this, you also will have the ability to have more competitive stance for state grants, including MassWorks and other grants that can help you leverage non-city funding to help you support those infrastructure needs. So that's another benefit of doing this plan and approving it that I didn't mention before. And then 6, we're hearing from members who've participated that preserving Woburn's community feel while welcoming change is very important, especially the feel of neighborhoods. People want to see careful new development that really respects and reflects the scale and feel of Woburn's neighborhoods. So those are the main things that we're hearing, and we are in the process of kind of compiling summaries on all of that public input. We just closed down the online platform yesterday, so we're looking at all of that information and the public input that we received, and we're working with your planning division to come up with a list of strategies and goals that reflect what we're hearing to bring to you next time when we come. And so that is in the works. And then steps for further input will be at the planning board in November, on November 12th, and community members can absolutely come, hear some of the preliminary ideas for strategies and goals, and give input. And then we are hoping to be able to be scheduled to come back to you on December 2nd, if that's an option. And then again, community members, if of course, if you open that up, can provide input as well. All right, and that's everything. I hope I didn't take up too much time. I'm happy to answer questions. I also know you have other things on your agenda, so I'll take your lead on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Questions for Jen? Councilor Demers.
Thank you. How you doing, Jen? Thanks for that presentation. Appreciate it. Just a few questions that, I did not make the meeting previously held, but I've talked to several constituents about it, some of who actually attended. And I guess the elephant in the room for a lot of these housing discussions that we've had, especially through the MBTA 3A and ADU law that came through, is in your professional interpretation of the landscape, both politically and through government, have you heard anything about any moves towards changing 40B? Because I think the biggest fear that folks out there in Woburn have is that the state's about to move the goalpost on us again.
I've heard people asking me that question, but only in Woburn, and I have not heard anything in any official capacity that's true.
I think the fear is that we're doing the right thing.
And then something will
change.
change in the goalpost.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have not heard that.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is your realm to answer this, so please bear with me. But one of the questions that I don't think that was really drilled down on during the ADU discussion was, does that impact our safe harbor?
No.
Because those are considered
They're not
considered
affordable.
affordable units? So that would
Oh, I see what you're saying.
add to the housing stock and lower our
I'm
number.
sorry, I misunderstood. I thought
Yeah.
you meant, would that add affordable units? But it would
Right.
add to your baseline. Any
Okay.
ADUs built would be another housing unit.
So the more ADUs that go out there that aren't considered affordable, are now going to be lowering that 10.3%.
It would add to your baseline of number of units, yeah.
Great. Okay, just another concern for the councils to have. When you mentioned incentives for housing, what are we talking about when you mentioned incentives? Are there local options that we have in terms of offering incentives to certain housing, or is that all within the 40B law as currently constituted?
So when I mention incentives for doing this plan, I think I'll answer what you're really asking me. But I think when I mentioned incentives, I meant there's an incentive to do this plan. That if you fall below the 10% at any point in time in the next 5 years, just by having this approved plan helps you just do some incremental production to get into something that's called safe harbor so that you can deny unfriendly 40Bs. And so just by nature of having the plan, whether you implement the plan or not, it doesn't actually matter. Just having an approved, locally approved and state approved plan. So that was an incentive I mentioned about having the plan.
Okay.
And then there's incentives around getting other funds that are state funds by having the plan, because it's considered a best practice just to have it. Again, whether you implement it or not is besides the point. It's whether you've approved it. But I think what you're talking about is what kind of incentives could we put in place? I may have actually said that when I was talking about deeply affordable units. So some things you can do, you have inclusionary zoning in various of your overlay districts that basically says if you're building a certain number of new housing units, a certain percentage needs to be affordable so we can keep up with our 10% that we're required to do. And those are going to most likely come in right at that 70 to 80% of the area median income, because that's all they're typically required to do. But you could embed incentives in those policies that say we might let you do a few more units if you actually give us more deeply affordable units that are more affordable to our Woburn residents, or we may have you do less number of affordable units for more deeply. So there's trade-offs, or we may let you go up another story if you give us deeply affordable, or you could just flat out require it and not ask for any kind of incentive or trade-off. So there's two ways you can write zoning. One is by giving incentives to get what you want, like if you want those deeply affordable units, and those are always trade-offs, right? The other is to just require it and say we don't want just 80%. We want some at 30%, some at 60%. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions. Councilor Mercer Bruin.
Jen, thank you. That presentation was excellent, and I really appreciate the time I got to spend with somebody from your organization that spent at least 45 minutes talking with me on the phone. Not only did it feel good to say all those things that I had to say, I hope it helped my constituency. It does not surprise me at all that you haven't heard the rumor about 40B levels going up, except for here. Doesn't surprise me at all. That rumor was started here. So again, doesn't surprise me at all. One of the things I told your consultant is Woburn really has, I think, done our part over the years far beyond what any community around us has done. We did it without anybody forcing us to do it. We did it because it was the right thing to do. All of this, for me, is concerning because I think a lot of it is driven by the state. Not because they're changing the number, but because they want some things on some land that we have, some big parcels of land. That's my opinion, and I'll continue to share it. I've been sharing it for a few years. But what would be nice for this community is if we are going to add housing, why can't it be what some of our younger people can't get right now? And what I hear from many 20-somethings is they want to live here in the community where they grew up. I'm not talking about 22, 23, 24. I'm talking about 25, 26. The younger 20-somethings, they're all living in Southie, and then they come back here, right? They're all having a good time there, paying crazy rent. And they're like, wait a minute, I'm tired. I don't want to go out anymore. I need to come and settle down in my community. That's legitimately what's happening with the younger population. You say let's do this for the people who live here, who want to stay here, right? And also make it affordable for other people. I'm not hearing enough about how we satisfy those people that want to come back here. And how do we do that? Can we do it through building more single-family homes? Does it have to be all apartments? There's a need for that, sure, but we've built 15,000 of them. Over 15,000 of them. So I am so excited about us doing more for housing production, but I'd like to see us include more. I'm sure you must have heard that from more people than just me. Am I wrong?
No, in fact, we heard a lot about the need for starter homes, especially for younger people who maybe grew up here, like you were saying, who want
Or
to
can't
come
afford
back.
to be
Right.
in their own town, like Winchester, right? And we don't want to, Winchester's a beautiful community, but at the end of the day, the price point to get into that community is so high. People who have grown up there can't get there, and I don't think anybody here wants that to happen to Woburn, right? We still want there to be a starting point. So I'm excited to see all the work that you've done and your team has done in collaboration with Mr. Cashel and his team. But those are the things that I would like to see more of as we're considering building housing. Keeping our needs what we need, not what they want at the State House necessarily, because that's not necessarily what's good for this city. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for everything. I look forward to the next presentation.
Thank you. Council Papalato.
Thank you, President. Thank you. That was a great presentation. There was a lot of good information in there. Do we have a copy? We get copies
I
of that?
can send it to you. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, Casey has it. Yeah.
We have, okay, that would be great. It'd be great to sit down and study some of that stuff. I love the fact that you're asking for resident input, and I think it behooves us to push that. The more input you get, the better the better feedback you're gonna get. But by the fact that you're asking us for feedback, is there a guarantee that you're gonna apply that feedback to this, or talk a little bit about how that works?
Sure. So I'm taking notes, and I intend to apply the feedback in the best way that I can. It's not really up to me completely, but yes, I will take your feedback and consider it very seriously.
Right, but the goal is to take the feedback that we're providing you as a city and apply it to meet the criteria of what you're trying to
To the
accomplish.
plan. Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Councilor DeMambro.
John, great presentation, and I thank you. So my question is, the ADU component of this, you say it's a baseline. So we don't get credit for housing if it's a detached ADU or if it's an ADU that moves in. Because what we're seeing is, this component of this ADU that the state mandated. I find it at first I was rather against it. But I do see that there was a time when, the children of the parents would move the parents in to an in-law apartment. Now the roles seem to have shifted through the decades. Now the parents are taking the kids back in because real estate is skyrocketing. It's your average house, I believe, in the city of Woburn right now is $750,000. That's the average. And then it goes all the way up into the 7 digits. Shouldn't we be getting some sort of credit for ADUs, especially the detached portions? That can, because you can have it, above, attached on the side and behind and detached. I question whether the state should be giving us credit towards that. And I understand, the affordable component, but it is rather affordable to build an ADU, 900 square feet at, say, the cost of $250,000, $350,000, as opposed to building a full-fledged house, 2,000 square feet, that's probably going to run you anywhere from $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. That's one question that I have. My other, I guess, issue I believe, with the presentation was you had stated that families are living, one or two in a home with 3 bedrooms. And from what I'm to see and understand, apartments right now are absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, unaffordable. A two bedroom, a 1 bedroom is anywhere from $3,000 to $3,500. 2 bedrooms are in the $45s to $5 range, and 3 bedrooms are in $6,500 dollar a month range. I don't see where there's a benefit from selling your house by where a lot of folks have a very modest mortgage, if none at all, and they're just dealing with utility bills, taxes, water, sewer. I don't understand how that's a benefit to sell your property, even though you can get market value, which is extremely high. But you're going to burn through that money pretty quick if you're going to be spending $7,000-8,000 a month for 2 people to live in an apartment. And I understand there's a lot of amenities that go along with that, with a pool, this, that, and the other thing. But to me, it just doesn't balance out. So, I don't understand how they can sit there and say a 3-bedroom in an apartment would be better than a 3-bedroom living in a modest ranch or a cape, that was built somewhere in the 40s or 50s and maybe even the 70s and 80s. I just don't understand that, and I don't understand any of that logic. If you can explain that to me, I would be quite impressed.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that and for thinking about it so carefully, too. I appreciate that. Sometimes you present and you wonder, is anybody listening? But you all clearly were, so thank you.
We're listening.
That's wonderful. And it's not so much that every person will want to do that. And it may make financial sense for some households, for some couples, for some individuals to stay, like you said, in that ranch that they've already paid off the mortgage or the mortgage is very low. But for other folks who are maybe aging and having mobility needs that aren't being met by a house with multiple stories, or they can't get to the snow removal or mowing the lawn or raking the leaves, or the energy costs of a larger single family home. And so the idea is just providing that choice, that if it makes sense for their own personal situation to want to move somewhere else but stay in Woburn, having units that actually are smaller but also affordable to them, because like you said, those market rate 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom apartments, those aren't affordable. Even the ones that say they're affordable aren't affordable to most of Woburn residents. So I think we're saying a similar thing. It's all about, personal choice and allowing people, rather than, feeling like they've got to move out to some other community because they want to downsize and have a condo where they don't have all those maintenance responsibilities, giving them more choice within the community so they could stay here.
I mean, my thing would be, I think if there is an affordable component, maybe the state could take and give them some sort of grace, maybe with the taxes or something to help out the seniors and veterans and people, with health issues. And just going back to the apartment component, a lot of these places too, that's the flat rate, and everything after that's a la carte. I mean, it's like the Capitol Grill world of living, conditions. Everything's a la carte. And so you could be spending far more than just $3,000 a month, once you want to park in the parking garage or use their pool or so on and so forth. And as for the aging community, it'd still be a heck of a lot cheaper, I think, if you just got a landscaper to come in and do that lawn and do that snow removal, than to go out and sell your nice little quaint little home to go move into an apartment and constantly get your rent raised and so on and so forth. So I appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Quick follow-up.
Yes, Councilor.
A quick follow-up on the slide that included the statistic of since 2020, I think it was 1,623 homes in multifamily structures were built. Is that from our own internal numbers in planning and building?
Yeah,
or
that was
is
provided by the
okay.
planning department. Yeah.
I was just curious in the sense of it would be nice to see some of the surrounding communities, what they've built over time, because I think we'd be lapping them. The other thing I wanted to inquire about was on the chart that referenced the, I should say, the map that showed the lot size compliance. Is there any chance we can get that broken down to the wards? Because I'd just be
Oh, yeah, instead of the neighborhoods.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd just be
sure.
interested to see the densities and the difference in lot compliance based on, I'd like to see what my ward looked like in terms of that, because that severely limits constituents.
Yeah,
And
we'd be
then-
happy to do that.
And then just a comment on the interesting thing I found on that slide that showed the line graph about the student population in Woburn, and where Councilor Ferrulo, I think, was kind of taken aback by the numbers in the dip in student population, is probably the best demonstration that we've seen as a council, that it is not necessarily the student population numbers that are impacting our schools, but the different needs that our students face. Because that was we're probably up at its height when I was on the school committee, we're probably still 300 to 400 students in the whole student population below those numbers when it hit its peak. So I think that's something that we can all consider from looking at that data as well. Thank you.
I mean, my graduating class had 900 people in it almost.
Mine had 299.
Way old.
Anyone else? Yes,
Just
Councilor Mercer.
on that note, I mean, 600 and how many?
It was like 875 or
800 and something. Mayor Concanon and I, class of 82, we must have had at least 600 in our class. I know my youngest daughter, when she graduated maybe 3 years ago, if there were 340 or 50, that was a high number, and it keeps going down. So I know you already made that point, but it's interesting at best, because the amount of money that we're asked to put forward every year becomes bigger and bigger. So.
Councilor Campbell.
Yes, hi, thank you so much for the presentation. I think for myself, what's concerning, and I know that for some of the other councilors as well, is the safe harbor. We worked on that for years. We are proactive compared to a lot of other communities. And so there was a goal, and we got it, and we were very happy with that. And then the MBTA Act came in, and they said, you know what, no matter what, you're putting 2,600 units in, you have to find a spot. And where for years now we have been in the safe harbor because we worked to be proactive. And it was as if that was not even looked at, where all the other different communities in the area weren't even close to getting to that, where we've done our part. And yet I feel like we were still penalized for that. And that didn't seem quite fair that happened, because we were already helping every year to have more units and doing the affordable housing and all of that. So that was a hard nut to swallow. That was hard when that happened. And I am concerned that the number's going to go up to, to 12 or whatever it might be. And then we'll be back to the drawing board again with that. So I guess I would love to see the communities that went out of their way to be proactive, to really think about what the state needed, as well as obviously our city and our residents, that we would somehow get a benefit for that, and that more units wouldn't just keep being put into our city when we've already done our part. So I'm not sure if there's anything that you can do about that.
No.
I didn't think so, but I think that was a little bit of a frustrating thing for us. And we, at least for me, I'm hoping that it's not just going to keep being put on us as a city, because we are trying to weigh it all for everybody who is living here, and obviously the state, so that we can have units for people. And then just one other thing with what Councilor DeMambro said. The ADUs, I guess I'm curious, why would they not be added to the affordable component when, who, most likely, they're paying affordable rates from, say, $900 to, say, $1,000, depending, because it's family members or whatever. So why can we not get the benefit of that as being affordable?
So it's not so much that you can't, that it's impossible to do it, but I'll describe how you would do it. And there are just issues that I think the city would face, as well as private homeowners, with really following the requirements to count them. So I'll give you an example. Barnstable, Massachusetts has been creating ADUs well before the state required it. And they have a program where they take those, so there's 4 things you have to do to get it on the subsidized housing inventory. One is it has to be subsidized, which doesn't always mean subsidies in terms of money, but I'll put that definition aside, but it has to be subsidized. It has to be deed restricted, and it has to be it has to be that affordable price, which you said, again, most of these probably are. And then the 4th thing is it has to be offered to a broadly advertised under affirmatively furthering fair housing laws. That's a marketing plan that then gets approved by the state. And the units, the tenants rather, would then be selected by a lottery or some other fair mechanism where the homeowner who owns that property wouldn't actually choose necessarily the exact person who's living in their unit. So there's an issue with the private side of there's probably not many homeowners who wouldn't want to have a lot of choice over who's going to be living in essentially my house, even if it's in my backyard. So that's one issue. The second issue, though, is just the practical issue of administering on the city side. Every year, the Barnstable staff has to collect income information, income returns, from all of the tenants that are living in those units, and they have to basically enforce if anybody has incomes that are, now outside of the realm. And it's really a paperwork nightmare for them to have to do that every year. They have been struggling with keeping up with that. And then every one of those ADUs, because it had to be quote-unquote subsidized, it went through the 40B process just like a comprehensive permit does. They grouped them and they took like 10 at a time or something, and they'd go through and they'd go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and ask for I call it like a mini comp plan, so that these ADUs can now be counted as affordable under the law. And so it just became very complicated. And when I worked on their housing plan years ago, they were feeling very frustrated by the burden that they've put themselves under to administer this program that they made. So it's not that it can't be done, but I do see downsides to it.
But now, since it is a law, it is something that could be looked at so that it could be changed so it wasn't so stringent, correct?
I mean, I'm talking about what exists in terms of legislation, but several of you are talking more about what can we push for at the state level to give some more acknowledgement of all the progress that Woburn has made, and we made our 10%, and you've complied with all of these laws, and then you feel like they keep moving the bar on you. And I'm not an elected official. I'm a private consultant. I really don't have any power over the State House, but I sympathize with what you're saying.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Just from the chair, if I may. I enjoyed my conversation, not an interview like I thought it was going to be, with one of your co-workers, Lucy. And it was very informative to me, and I expressed my opinion. Myself, I've had my real estate broker's license since 1986, and I've made a career out of the real estate industry. So this is kind of in my wheelhouse. So a lot of this new development, I'm trying to not only look at with an open mind, but I also have some experience with it. One of the things that Woburn has done is, as many of the councilors have said, we set the path for housing production in apartments. We really did our part. Matter of fact, doing some research on this, I understand that 40% of our housing is rentals at this point. So I think that speaks volume. As far as the ADUs, I would be singing off the rooftop in favor, doesn't matter, it happened, but I would have much encouraged and embraced it if it had an owner occupancy component to it. It doesn't. And my response to that is some of the mortgages like FHA, VA mortgages, they require a owner occupancy component to it. And there's a reason for that. And that's what I'll say about that. The other thing I spoke to Lucy about, I've always said this saying, the market drives the market. We don't drive the market. And when you really look at that, there's so many different parts that makes a real estate market healthy or not healthy. We're seeing it. I've been through 3 cycles actively in the real estate life of mine. So what you're saying is great. I appreciate the whole demonstration that you put on tonight, but I think really it comes down to land costs and construction costs. And unless we get federal help and state help, it's going to be the same old, because there's only so much land, it's competitive, and it costs a lot of money. And as Councilor Toro will tell you, to build anything today or remodel anything is extremely expensive. So that's kind of what I got out of and what I talked to Lucy about yesterday. And I appreciate your presentation, and I look forward to diving into it deeper in future conversations. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else?
Just wanted to say thank you very much,
thank you.
Jen, for
Thanks.
everything.
Thank you.
So much.
Yes, John?
I just want to make sure everybody realizes this was the initial presentation by Jen. We're going to continue with this process right through to completion. It's going to involve the council approval of the report, so you'll all be getting copies of it. People want hard copies or digital copies. This is the draft. This isn't the final by any means. This is the draft copy. So there's a lot of input that needs to be figured out. One thing I want to stress, the need for housing has been eternal since the beginning of time. Putting a house, a roof over your head has been a big problem since we've started walking on the planet, and it doesn't go away. This is an era where we're faced with where housing all of a sudden has become extremely expensive. Your kids get married, all of a sudden they're looking at possibly buying a house for $1 million. And most of that is going to be a mortgage. And it's incredible, the cost of housing. It just has exploded. Probably the prime time for housing and the affordability of housing was probably in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And those times are long gone. But before the 50s, 60s, and 70s, families lived together. They made, a single family into a duplex, into a triplex, into a quadplex, depending on how many kids they had. And, back in those days, you had to take care of your families. Today, there's a lot of federal housing programs and subsidies and whatnot. But, prior to those programs that really started to explode in the 60s, you really had to take care of your own family. And if you didn't have family, you were in a real tough bind, So this issue of housing isn't something new. It's existed since the beginning of time. And, we're going through it because we're alive right now, and we're trying to provide for our kids that are looking for housing, so forth and so on. People are getting older. The baby boomer generation, we're not teenagers anymore. we're the ones walking.
Speak for yourself, John.
Yeah, we're the ones now walking slower in the supermarkets by the millions, and we're all trying to figure out, what our housing needs are going to be. You have a 2.5-story house, and I know a lot of people are looking for those ranches that they didn't want 20 years ago. Life is a lot more comfortable on a single floor, going from bedroom to kitchen to bathroom, without having to go up a full flight of stairs. So that's another thing that's happening. We have to modify our housing somewhat, and figure out what's going to best accommodate our needs as we all do get older. I'm much older than most of you guys, but.
Make a motion to return to the regular order of business.
Thank you, John. Thank you,
Motion
Casey.
and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Make a motion that the matter is placed on file.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is under new petitions, the petitions for the 2026 renewal of first-class motor vehicle sales licenses.
Make a motion that the matter be referred to the Committee on Public Safety and License.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
On the petitions for 2026 renewal of second-class motor vehicle sales licenses.
Same action.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
On the petition by President Dillon, proposed zoning amendment for a new line 114A to section 5.1 table of use, regulations prohibiting virtual currency kiosks in all zoning districts.
Make a motion the matter be referred to a public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Next item on the agenda is a petition by the Tavern on the Square, Woburn LLC, request for minor plan change under section 30.13.1 to replace vinyl curtain walls with window installations on the building rooftop layout at 300 Mishram Road. A communication dated October 15, 2025 was received from Attorney Mark Vaughn.
Make a motion that communications be received, made part of the permanent record.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Petitioner is here.
I'll make a motion that we suspend the rules to allow the petitioner or his representative to speak.
Second.
Second.
There is a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Attorney Vaughn, how are you tonight?
Doing well, Mr. President. Nice to see you. For the record, Attorney Mark Vaughn with the law firm of Reamer Bronstein, representing the petitioner, Tavern in the Square. Good evening, everyone. With me is Sal Jesimondo, who is Regional Director for Tavern in the Square, and you might be familiar with him as a familiar face at Tavern here in Woburn. But we have a minor plan amendment that's been submitted to the council. I think it's pretty straightforward, as set forth in the letter that we had sent to the council. Tavern in the Square has been operating a restaurant at Woburn Village for past 2 or 3 years. It's been a successful restaurant. I think they've been in the community, very much value their relationship with the city. When it was originally approved, I think you've all, hopefully all been in there at some point, but they have a rooftop area that is partially enclosed with a roof canopy over it. They originally had put in these somewhat heavy-duty vinyl curtain wall system there to provide for kind of shelter for folks that were dining upstairs. Over time, those things have become weathered. They're not the easiest to replace when they become ripped or torn. And what they're simply looking to do is to be able to replace that by virtue of having bifold windows installed in the same locations where those vinyl curtain walls are. We did submit as part of the application just a schematic showing the 2 specific areas where those windows would be installed, as well as a photo giving you a better sense. And as some on the council may recall back, I think it was in maybe 2020, when we were getting some of the outdoor dining approved for the lower area, there was a request for first floor if there was ever going to be enclosures to make sure that they were done with windows. So we're really just looking to do the same thing up on the second floor here. So not expanding the area whatsoever. It's really just being done with the same exact area. So. And I guess while I have you wearing my other hat as counsel for Edens, I would like to just update the council that the sidewalk system that was previously approved by the council has been installed. If you've been out there, the sidewalk heading over to the corner of the property where Chase Bank is. They put in the sidewalks with the painting on there, kind of noting for people that it's not a far walk at all if you're looking to walk over. And I also understand that the daycare center has been completed such that that parking area as well is being utilized during off-peak hours as part of that complimentary parking arrangement. So with that, happy to answer any questions or address any comments you might have, but I think it'll be aesthetically a significant enhancement, would look a lot better, and operationally a more comfortable environment for the patrons. So thank you.
Questions for Attorney Vaughn? Councilman Mercer Bruin.
You guys do an amazing job down there. I'm so happy. What a great business that is going on down there. People in Woburn love it. People from all over love it. I think this is a great idea. You'll be able to use that space all winter long. People can watch the snow blowing around outside while you serve, all the great things that you serve at your place. I commend you for bringing it forward. I wish in the beginning this would have been done. I'm very happy that you're bringing it forward. I support it 100%. I certainly see it as minor but major for your business. So thank you for bringing it forward. And as Attorney Vaughn mentioned, the sidewalks are done. It took a few years, I'll point out, from the last time we talked about it, or at least two, but they are done. So to your client, I thank them for that as well. So that's all I have to say. President Dillon, I support it 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Make a motion to return the regular order.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Make a motion that the minor modification be granted.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Good luck.
Very good. Good luck.
Thank you all.
Good luck.
Appreciate your time. Have a good evening.
Next item on the agenda is petition by Boston Gas Company, DBA National Grid, for grant of location to install approximately 420 feet of replacement gas main with plastic gas main between 299 and 315 Mishawam Road. There's communication that was not on the extended agenda dated October 21st, 2025 from Diana Cuddy requesting withdrawal without prejudice.
Make a motion the communications received made part of the permanent record.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second to open the public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in this matter? Please step forward. Seeing no one.
Make a motion that the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Make a motion that the leave to withdraw without prejudice be granted.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Next item on the agenda is a petition by Milton Real Properties of Massachusetts for a special permit under section 5.1 subsection 45 and subsequently amended for the rental of compact construction equipment, including accessory repair and storage facilities at 210 New Boston Street. A committee report from the Committee on Special Permits was received ought to pass with 15 conditions as amended. Just as a note to the public, in the extended agenda, there was inaccurate committee report conditions that included 16 of them. That was inaccurate. It's the 15 conditions. And I believe Council DeMambro might have additional conditions to submit tonight.
Attorney Huck, how are you today?
Good, just fine. We have looked at the special conditions. I've spoken with Councilor DeMambro and with Mr. Farron and Ethan Flinkstrom here representing Milton Real Properties. And we are in agreement with the most recent draft that Councilor DeMambro has compiled.
Questions? Councilor DeMambro.
Attorney Hawk, I was prepared to move on this tonight, but we still have this looming component of the EPA letter, approval letter. What can you tell the council about that?
Flinkstrom of Milton Real Properties.
I'm sorry, can you say the name again? I couldn't hear anything.
Ethan Flinkstrom?
You have the floor, sir.
Yeah, so we've been working with VHB and Joe LeMay with the EPA. We've had 2 rounds of comments from him, and the 60-day, roughly 60-day typical turnaround period was last Wednesday. We've most recently had communication with him last Thursday asking for the estimated construction cost. So it appears as though we're getting close to the final comments. That's basically where we stand right now.
Questions? Councilor DeMambro.
So, I have the 16 conditions in place, but I would also like to add one more.
I haven't accepted that for the record yet.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that the draft provided by Councilor DeMambro be accepted as a working draft.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
So on this working draft, I'd like to make it 17. It would basically say, if the permit that we're about to approve is contingent on the EPA's approval letter and any conditions the EPA deems necessary for the project at 210 New Boston Street. I would like to make that formal.
Second.
Can you please repeat that?
I would like to take and add condition 17. That would say the permit is contingent on the EPA approval letter and any conditions the EPA may require at the site for Milton Cat 210.
May require at 210, did you say?
If you're in agreement with that,
Only thing I would have to say is we understand that absent approval of the EPA, that the building commissioner cannot or cannot issue any building permits over there. I would hate to have the, I really wouldn't care to have the petition contingent in that fashion. I want to say that I want to put some condition on there with respect to the issuance of building permits for construction is approved. The permit, that's fine.
I'll agree to that. I would agree to that.
So that the petition itself is not contingent, but
The building permit is.
building permits are.
Correct.
Permits to move forward in construction pursuant to the petition as presented and approved.
Through the EPA. Yes, sir.
Councilor Mercer Bruin.
Thank you. I'm not going to vote for it this evening if that condition's not here. I don't suspect you'll need my vote, but I think that is an important condition. I understand the building commissioner has authority to do it through his permitting, but what do we call this? Boots and suspenders, or maybe I'm using the wrong term, but I don't think there's any harm in this if you know there's not going to be any problem, so I'm a little concerned, Attorney Huck, that you don't want it. But again, I don't think you're going to need my vote, but I can't put my name on it without that tonight.
It's really
And one more thing, just want to point out, we don't have a site plan of record referenced here, so I think we would need to do that if y'all want to move on it tonight, right? A date and a current site plan of record? Yeah. Thank you.
The current site plan is submitted with the petition.
It's not listed here, and as a condition it needs to be, sir, through the chair.
Please.
Whatever the current site plan of record is that we're accepting, it needs to be listed here in the permit, on the conditions.
Councilor Toro.
Thank you. I would tend to agree with Councilor Mercer Bruin. I would like, I usually defer to the counselor at the ward. And again, I don't know if you'd need necessarily my vote for this, but I'm not super comfortable with not making that a condition. Similar to what Councilor Mercer Bruin said, I don't see any harm. The site, we know the site has some issues. If it were my, I'm an at-large counselor, but if it was my ward, I'd give you 2 options. Either I'm going to add it as a condition, or we're going to push this back until we get the response. And I would assume you and the petitioner would prefer to have it as a condition, so you can move forward with the progress of your site. That's me personally, as the at-large counselor. But again, I think even if Councilor Mercer Bruin and I voted against it, I think you're fine. But I don't see any issue with including it as a condition, and if you're opposed to that, I would recommend pushing it. I think we're being super flexible with you and your petitioner in this sense, and that's my 2 cents on it. Thank you.
What I would have to say in response again is, as I mentioned to Councilor Mercer Bruin, I really don't care. I wouldn't really. The client, I believe, would not prefer to have the clarity of the permit itself conditional in that respect. But if there's a condition for, with respect to commencement of construction or the issuance of application for building permit as a condition, that's fine.
No.
Please.
So I understand. We rely on our commissioner, our inspectional services
Correct.
for a lot, but you're in front of us for the special permit, not the commissioner. That's just another step in the process. So it's our duty and it's our authority to condition this on how we feel most appropriate. So I get what you're saying, and I appreciate it, but we don't necessarily need to rely on the commissioner to issue the building permit if we're not comfortable issuing the special permit without that condition, without the approval or the response from the EPA. It's well within our rights to request that. So I appreciate it, and generally I'm all for business, being a business owner myself, but I think this is a small detail, and if your petitioner is not amenable to it, then push it out. So. Go ahead.
Thank you. Councilor Viola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Generally, I'd agree with the ward councilor. However, I do agree with Councilor Mercer Bruin and Councilor Toro. Anytime the EPA is involved, I tend to err on the side of caution. If it's not going to be one of the conditions here, I wouldn't be able to vote in favor of it.
Anyone else? Councilor DeMambro.
We're going to make it on the special permit and not rely on the building permit.
All I can say is that in dealing with the EPA, we're dealing with a matter of federal supremacy. No matter what's granted here tonight, if it doesn't meet approval with EPA, they can stop it cold.
I would feel more comfortable if, and I'm in agreement, and that's why I said in the beginning that it's contingent upon, the approval of the EPA. The special permit's contingent on that. And I would also add line item 18, that there is a current record, site plan of record, attached to this and put on the record, because there still seems to be plans being floated out there at the site. And I spoke to Commissioner Quinn, but he didn't bring that up when I had spoken to him yesterday and today. So I would like that as also.
Those plans also are subject to approval by the EPA.
Right. So I want that attached as well. So that could be line item 18 on the conditions that the site plan of approval, the current site plan of approval,
That's
needs
fine.
to be approved through the EPA as well as the building commissioner.
That's fine.
Councilor Demers.
So just a point of clarification, based on the filing that we have before us, the plans were drafted on June 12, 2025, and they were amended on July 14th, 2025 to include city comments, correct?
Correct.
So that would basically be your placeholder for your plan of record. So that, we have that language available. It doesn't need to be signed off on anything. It's the permit before us, or the petition before us, for one. And two, it was drafted on June 12th, 2025, and then amended July 14th, 2025 with city comments to reflect the department head meeting.
July 24th.
July 14th.
14th, sorry.
Excuse me.
That was me.
The other thing that I would caution my colleagues, and I take to heart greatly the concerns whenever there's a project that's under review of the EPA, especially when the site is capped. We had that similar situation over at the Woburn Landing, where that site was capped, and there needed to be tender care on that one. I just caution my colleagues that the more we wade into putting superseding law into our special permits, that we wouldn't even be able to override anyhow. When we already have ordinances in place, or there's already federal rules in terms of EPA regulations that already supersede what we would ever put in a permit or already exist, I think it's just redundant. and it's punitive, but, I mean, if there are valid concerns when it comes to the EPA report, I don't think they'd be reaching out to the petitioner and asking for what the cost of build-out is if they weren't just dotting the i's and crossing the t's at this point. And the petitioner is at the mercy of the federal government shutdown as where this is going to actually come out and be finalized. We don't know what level of employees over at the regional office are actually there to be able to put this together. So, I mean, I'll err on the side of caution, but I do believe that I'll be deferring to what Councilor DeMambro comes up with this evening, because if the EPA doesn't approve it, there wouldn't be a building permit, and this petition's moot.
Councilor Mercer Bruin.
Thank you. Nobody's trying to hold you up here, Attorney. This is part of our due diligence, as Councilor Toro and Councilor Viola so eloquently pointed out. We do have this authority. We should exercise it whenever possible. We should not be sitting around waiting for anything. We have a responsibility to review those reports before we put our signatures on this. So I would urge my counselors to encourage the petitioner to either accept it or to defer, and let's wait. And the other thing I would say, this is certainly not punitive, with all due respect, Councilor Demers. This is part of what we're supposed to do. And the reference to the Woburn Village, boy, I'll never forget the council debate right before our Christmas party. President Haggerty was not happy with me, and we laugh about it today, that I wanted that pushed because we still were waiting for information very similar, right? So I feel strongly this is our responsibility. If other counselors don't, that's okay. But I don't think it's any harm in waiting or using the language. Thank you, President Dillon.
You're welcome.
I promise I'm done.
Attorney Huck, would it help if we took a 5-minute recess and you could confer with your client and see if you could work this out and come back and get this?
All I can say is I'm not sure that would that would amount to anything, because we still have not heard from the EPA. I think that was the 16th.
Right, that was the 60-day.
Right.
Mr. President,
What else?
is the EPA
Councilor
even open?
Farul, please.
Is the EPA even opened? I mean, are they doing anything?
Did not know that.
Through the chair,
Yes.
that doesn't stop us from
No, I just
doing our
curious.
job. We're still open. Last I heard, we're still open.
Just another comment, and I want to clarify what I meant before, is that, I don't know, we are doing our job by conditioning a permit as to how we want to see them build whatever they're going to build there, all right? But if there are already laws, ordinances, municipal code, building code, plumbing code, and so forth already in place, it is not necessary for us to spell out what is already law in our special permits. That's the only thing I was saying. I just find it to be redundant, because the law and the process and the procedure is already in place that would stop this based on the building permit level, based on the EPA level. We can put as much language as we want in here, but it isn't gonna change the fact, it's not like we're creating a new condition. We're just citing something that already exists. So I just want to caution my colleagues that having a discussion back and forth on including something in a special permit that the petitioner would already have to follow no matter what is ludicrous, in my opinion.
As I said before, it's a matter of federal supremacy and the EPA statute.
Yeah, if the EPA says no, this petition is moot.
Correct.
If the building commissioner is well within his rights to say, if you don't have an EPA letter of approval for this project to move forward on capped land, which is protected by federal law, this isn't going anywhere anyhow. So I just don't understand why we need to place that as a point of condition for the special permit, because we're basically conditioning something that's already a condition.
Councilor Toro.
Thank you. I guess my concern is without the EPA letter of approval, this letter that comes back, I'm assuming isn't just going to say approved on it. They're going to give comments in additional details. I think, for me personally, any decision that I make, I want to make with all the information that I should have. And I think this is information. Does it change anything? Potentially, no. But you're asking me, as one of the counselors, to put my name and sign off on a petition or a special permit without all the information. And I don't see any harm with waiting for the approval because, again, does it just, and maybe you can, Attorney Hawk, you can speak to this. Are we simply going to get a letter back that says approved on it, or are there going to be information pertaining to this site that could potentially be valuable that may come up with a second or a 16th or 17th condition, or maybe change the language in the special permit? I just don't feel super comfortable in approving anything. And again, I'm one of 9 counselors. So everyone, that's a great thing about having 9 of us. We're going to have 9 differences of opinions. But me personally, I am not going to do it I'm not going to sign off unless you either push it or include it. And I'm going to be done talking about it for myself.
Anyone else?
I'm not sure if there's any seconds on any of those motions, but I only heard a motion, so.
Do we have a motion?
17 and 18 aren't.
Yet, I don't think.
There's a motion for 17, but I don't know if there was a second.
I don't recall a second.
So just to let you know, those aren't approved yet.
So,
Number 17 was
If you're
the,
withdrawing that, are you going to put a 17 on?
was the one, this one. This discussion. And number 18 was going to be the plan of record.
Plan of record.
But that was never made a motion.
we'll do it once we agree here.
Just want to clarify that.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
What's the will of the council?
After,
Attorney Hawk,
speaking with
yes.
the representative of the client and the builder, we just as soon defer until after receiving the final approval from the EPA.
Very good, thank you.
Make a motion that we add a 17th condition, which is the plan of record, as the dates provided previously to the clerk.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Through the chair.
Yes.
So that would leave us with 17 pending conditions in the working draft that would be up for final approval when we return after the EPA letter is submitted to the council.
That's how I understand it.
Thank you.
Everyone's
That would be
understanding?
that would be the July 14th revision?
Yes.
So there is a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Thank you, Attorney Huck.
Well, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
A motion and a second to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in this matter? Please step forward. Seeing no one.
Before continuing the public hearing, Mr. President, I'm curious as to what the council thinks. Well, we have a November 18th. Okay. I'll make a motion that we continue the hearing to the November 18th meeting because our November 4th is canceled due to the election.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you, Attorney Huck.
Thank you. Good evening.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is MHP Realty LC for special permit under section 5.1 subsection 69, 7.3, and 9.5 to construct 3,200 square feet of single-story building addition within the floodplain at 10 Commerce Way. A committee report from the Committee on Special Permits was received back for action.
How are you, sir?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. Michael Levaney, I'm an architect with Cummings Properties. On behalf of MHP Realty, for the benefit of the Cummings Foundation, thank you for having me again. I think last time we all met, was here, and we sent the project to committee. We talked about it in the committee, and it came back here for not for action, it came back for action.
Back for action.
All right, let's have some action. I got some action, got some ideas if you need some ideas. So I'm happy to present this again. Probably better off in a position just to answer some questions and see what we can do to keep this moving.
Councilor Mercer Brewer.
Thank you, President Dillon. When we were in committee, I had asked Attorney Avini about
Architect.
pulling out, I'm sorry. I always do that, I'm sorry.
Can't misrepresent. If I said I'm attorney, I'm sorry.
Representative, I'm sorry. No, it's not, because I'm just used to that, right? Mike, how's that? About additional conditions, because there were over 100 of them from the Conservation Commission. Because typically, Commissioner Quinn will want us to highlight some of those. I had a long conversation with him on Monday about this. He did not feel it was necessary. And as I went through it, the only thing that I feel is necessary is that it's called out here in the permit. And as one of my colleagues pointed out, Councilor Demers, it's already in here as condition number 3. That all of the conditions will be adhered to by the Conservation Commission. The only thing I will ask this council is that we amend that to say herein attached, or language to that effect. So if someone's going to look for this, it should be easily found. That's my only recommendation. If there's no objection through the chair to Mr. Avini, I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Herein attached?
Yep.
Is a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Having said that, I don't have any questions at all, and I'm ready to move forward if the rest of the council is.
Councilor DeMambro.
Mike, I was down at that site and I was driving around. I noticed the loader over there, and I noticed a lot of gravel or fill. Where did all that material come from? There's over 100 yards over there.
Yeah, it's a good question. As you know, we have some area in back at 10 and 12 Gill Street. We have a little bit of a yard over there, and that's where that material came from.
So all that stage material up against the silt fence and the
Yeah.
the silt sock.
If you notice, they had it a little closer, and they had to move it out of the way.
Oh, I noticed it. There was a lot of material over there.
Pushed it back closer to be outside of the 150 feet. It was an oversight on the part of the operator, obviously. So as soon as I saw it, we moved it, and it's where it needs to be now.
Thank you. Councilor DeMers, you have something?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure that, we need a motion to approve the working draft, but did we formally amend in committee condition number 5 that had the
Yes.
specificity? Okay. Okay, great. So I'll make a motion that the 11 conditions as amended be our conditions for the permit.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Also make a motion that we make the finding under 7.3 that such change, extension, or alteration is not substantially more detrimental than existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Make a motion that the public hearing be open.
Second.
Motion and a second to open the public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in this matter? Please step forward. Seeing no one.
Make a motion that the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
I'll make a motion that the special permit be granted with the conditions as outlined this evening.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Very good.
Good one.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
You as well, sir.
Next item on the agenda is the petition by Adriana Rodriguez for special permit under section 5.157A at 494 Main Street. A committee report for committee on special permits was received back for action. Further, a communication dated October 15, 2025 was received from Lieutenant Mark Smith, Fire Prevention, as well as a communication dated October 15, 2025 was received from Adriana Rodriguez, requesting that this be continued.
Make a motion that the communications be received and made part of the permanent record.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Make a motion that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second, we open the public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this matter? Please step forward. Seeing no one?
Make a motion that the public hearing be continued to the regular meeting of the city council on November 18th.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Next item on the agenda on committee reports is committee and personnel. On the order that the city council fill the vacancy in the position of the deputy superintendent of public works, appointment of Anthony Pausiali. A committee report was received, ought to pass.
Make a motion the committee report be adopted.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Next item on the agenda are various 2026 renewal of second-class motor vehicle sales licenses. A committee report was received, ought to pass from public safety.
Make a motion the committee report be adopted.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Next is communication dated October 6, 2025, from Tim Donovan, the treasurer collector.
Make a motion the matter be received and placed on file.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Okay. On the next matter, it is the request for executive session by city solicitor regarding Joe Capello, trustee of the Freedom Realty Trust versus City of Woburn, with a docket number. The city council may go into executive session under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy relative to pending litigation in the matter. A communication dated October 9, 2025 was received from city solicitor Mark Salati.
Make a motion the communication be received and made part of the permanent record.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
President Dillon, you must make a statement.
Yes, the city council needs to go into executive session as I am declaring that if an open meeting was held on this matter, this may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the city council.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion that we go into executive session under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Subsection A, Subsection 3, Purpose 3, to discuss strategy relative to pending litigation in the matter of Joe Capello, trustee of the Freedom Realty Trust versus the City of Woburn, civil docket number 2018 CV 02187, and that the chair, having declared that if an open meeting was held on this matter, this may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining and litigating position of the city council by roll call.
Roll call, please.
To go into executive session, Counsel Campbell.
Aye.
Counsel Demers.
Aye.
Counsel DeMambro. Aye. Counsel Ferrulo.
Aye.
Counsel Mercer Bruin.
Aye.
Counsel Papalato.
Aye.
Counsel Toro.
Aye.
Counsel Vio.
Aye.
President Dillon.
Aye.
And then President Dillon, you must state something.
Yes, I state that the city council will reconvene an open session following the discussion of this matter.
who do you guys get to run over to my people because you can't throw it?
PM, the city council returns to city council chambers.
Council Dillon, you must state what happened in the session,
There were no votes taken.
and now you.
Take a motion to return to regular order?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Next item on the agenda is a request for executive session by City Solicitor for Press It LLC. The city may go into executive session on this under 21A3, just like the previous one, for pending litigation. A communication dated October 9th, 2025 was received from Mark Salvati. the city
Make a motion, the communications received, made part of the permanent record.
Motion, the city council needs to
No,
go...
no, there's a motion and a second on the floor.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
And now President Dillon.
The city council needs to go into executive session, as I am declaring that if an open meeting was held on this matter, this may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the city council.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion that we go into executive session under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, Purpose 3, to discuss strategy relative to the pending litigation in the matter of Pressit LLC versus the City of Woburn, Civil Docket Number 2018 CV 02103, and that the chair, having declared if an open meeting was held on the matter, that it may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the city council.
Motion and a second.
Second.
Roll call, correct?
Second, roll call.
Counsel Campbell.
Aye.
Counsel Demers.
Aye.
Counsel DeMambro. Aye. Counsel Ferrullo.
Aye.
Counsel Mercer Bruin.
Aye.
Counsel Papalato.
Aye.
Counsel Toro.
Aye.
Counsel Viola.
Aye.
President Dillon.
Aye. City council will reconvene in open session following discussion of this matter.
It is now 8:59 PM.
At 9:06 PM, the city council returned to the council chamber. The city council made a motion to approve the settlement of $45,000.
Make a motion to return to the regular order of business?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion.
That passes.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Good, Lindsay?
Yep.
A motion and a second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 9:07.